Hello, it is Friday, August 11th, 2023 at 9:52 Eastern Time, USA. I'm Mitch Miller. This is my video journal. Today we're going to talk about love, right? Love in a corporate communist country that calls itself capitalist, but capitalist, American-style capitalism is just another word for corporate communism. First, some housekeeping. I forgot to mention I did go camping with Jesse Daw, the former MA in the Navy, military, who is somewhat suicidal at times and is, I consider, one of my best friends and an asset if I should go to Ukraine, rather than the supercomputers initiating autonomous vehicles to secure areas that I enter into. We have a plan B, or plan A for that matter. I'm fairly certain that Jesse Daw would, if approached, would lead a task force into Ukraine to get me out safely if I were in harm's way, right? Went camping with him and his new girlfriend. And some new information came of light. His compound in Guy's Mills with the large pond on it, his house, it looks like he is going to get that house. He's going to buy his ex-wife out of the house, Alyssa, and be able to stay on that property, which he wants more than most things in life because it's secluded and it's a nice property. So the groundwork I've done by calling his landline at that property. This is for the supercomputers. That's still in play. That landline will probably continue to go on, and it's a solid reference point up in Guy's Mills for supercomputers. Now also the groundwork that Jesse has done on his data system, such as mapping out his pond using the PA Fish Commission or the Pennsylvania Game Commission mapping program and website, so that he could possibly put Asian carp in that pond to eat some of the weeds. That's a good reference point for that mapping system, and that can coordinate with other mapping systems, so that can be a reference point, the dimensions of that pond and how that was mapped out, including what date and time that happened. Alright, so the other housekeeping thing I wanted to talk about, Hillary just told me, I believe yesterday or the day before, that she will not be traveling to Vietnam this September, but rather a trip to South Korea to begin to establish a program in South Korea. She's going to be there for 4 days, I believe somewhere around the dates of September 16th through September 22nd. She asked if I wanted to go, and I said that I couldn't afford it, namely because I do need to get a dental surgery. That's the other thing I want to talk about. I have receding gums. Apparently I brushed too hard, so it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. If you brush too much, too hard, you get receding gums and you need surgery. If you don't brush at all, your teeth rot and you lose them. So it's a delicate process. I have started using an electric toothbrush that warns me when I'm pushing too hard. Hopefully that rectifies some of the situation. I also use a receding gum line toothpaste in the morning. But I think I'm going to have to get this surgery within the next 6 months to a year. Where that fits into the schedule, I'm not sure yet, but I'll approach getting another consult with the oral surgeon at my dental appointment on September 11th. So that, when I priced that out before COVID, I did do a consult before COVID, so it's been 3 years since they said I needed this, and I priced it out with our insurance. It was going to be $2,000. It's probably more now, so I need that money. I can't spend the $1,700 on airfare to South Korea for a 4-day trip. even though the lodging would be free through Hillary's work. I would love to see my friend Aaron Bruckert and his wife Jung Mi Park, but I just don't think it's going to happen. So unfortunately, and again, I said I'm grounded for the foreseeable future. Trains, automobiles, and staying out of the air for a while. Now, if Delta were to give me a free round-trip ticket to Seoul, South Korea, and back to Pittsburgh, then I would consider going. But I don't think the airlines see me as a good, or I don't think the airlines even know about me or care about me, right? Maybe they can look in their computer systems and see that I'm a good reference point. My ID going into their systems validates certain people, helps certain people, and the idea that I'm on an aircraft could validate and justify the air traffic control system of the United States and possibly other countries. But it's all hocus pocus to the executives, right? They're mesmerized and hypnotized by their own technology, and they don't want to acknowledge that someone like me is a person of interest to their supercomputers, and I keep things on track by initiating reference points with my face, voice, credit, debit cards, and social security number and everything that's linked to it. Anyhow, I want to talk about love, because I've sent out some direct messages to some probably scammers disguised as women that have tried to contact me through Facebook. And in these, they inevitably ask about if I'm married, and I usually respond that yes, but marriage is a contract that can be negotiated, the terms of which can be negotiated, and then one thing I said on one of these messages was, because someone said I miss being loved. I said love in capitalism love can't exist in capitalism. It's all about contracts and damage control, right? So I've made the argument that I'm wirelessly sensitive. I am connected to supercomputers and artificial intelligence in a interesting way, right? Some might say it's psychically, others might say it's wireless connection interfering with my brain waves. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that I stand in an interesting position because I am sensitive to this, and I'm sure government agencies have studied psychics. They want to develop psychic technology, things like that. So here you have a person saying, I think that I have some of these qualities, and I am in an interesting position because I'm in a contract with Hillary Kohler. I'm in a marital contract. It's mostly a verbal contract, but there is paperwork filed with the state that assures me certain rights. And that's one of the main reasons I did get married, is to enjoy more rights. Helicopter taking off. As a citizen, right? To align myself with another person so that we have more rights. That's how they convince you to get married, right? Is that you'll enjoy more rights. So I have this marital contract. My father-in-law, Charles Gilbert Kohler Jr., worked for the Johnson & Johnson Corporation. He was an executive. He worked in contracts. He had 200 lawyers that worked for him, working on different contracts with Johnson & Johnson, one of the largest pharmaceutical corporations in the world and probably one of the largest corporations in the world. I believe he also handled damage control. He never really admitted that to me, but when something came up in the news, I believe he looked into contracts to see how they could silence these media outlets and these people, right? So, and again, I've made this argument when I did my videos abroad. I've hinted about this stuff, but I want to come right out and say it, right? He did damage control and contracts. I'm in a contract with his daughter. I've investigated different things here in the United States. I've brought them to the attention of his daughter. I've taken her to a public library and showed her the CIA database that Johnson & Johnson produced. And her reactions are subdued. It's almost as if she's handling damage control for her father's corporations. The corporation he worked for, the corporations he's invested in. Right? And these interactions with her have led me to believe, and also when I had experienced coincidences in 2010 leading up to my first incarceration, I would come home and tell her about these crazy coincidences every night, every other night, every couple nights a week. And she just kind of swept them she didn't really acknowledge them. As, wow, that's really weird, I wonder what this is. Right? She just ignored them. So, these interactions with Ms. Cooler leads me to believe that, and I'll say what I've said on the internet, the corporate hive mind, the supercomputers and the wireless systems and the satellite systems of these big corporations, their hive mind, it's as if people are psychically linked to that hive mind to run damage control for the corporations they're invested in. So that's why I've explained on Facebook that I would like to ally with someone who does not have investments in the stock market, the publicly traded stock market, and that anyone that is set to, that they might inherit wealth from, does not put them in their will to receive stock options or publicly traded stock. Right? So I think anyone is psychically linked. The supercomputers can see in these lawyers, in these wealthy people's lawyers' computer systems, their will, who's going to receive the stock, who's going to receive the real estate, who's going to receive the vehicles. Right? Hackers could hack into that and see who's set to receive certain things, because I don't believe these independent lawyers' computer systems are the most secure. So what I'm saying is, individuals who want to be neutral, who want to be free thinkers, who don't want to subconsciously handle damage control, like the first thing that comes out of their mouth is their subconscious saying, I don't believe that, or I don't think that's accurate, or I'd have to look into that more, right? When someone's looked into it very extensively. If they want to get away from that, they need to have the conversation with their parents, with their grandparents, with their aunts or uncles, anyone they might inherit wealth from. Look, I don't want to inherit stock in any public stock market from you. So can you word your will differently so that and again, they could receive real estate, they could receive a government pension, they could receive vehicles, they could receive cash, government bonds, T-bonds, T-bills, anything like that would keep them neutral, right? Because we're supposed to have a neutral government. So I'm not saying that people can't inherit wealth. It's just the wealth that comes from being invested in the publicly traded stock market affects how people react when presented with very clear and real evidence. And that's why I've hesitated to bring my investigations to government officials, government agents and agencies, departments, because they're all invested in the stock market, right? They're not relying on their salary from the government and their pensions from the government. They also branch out and invest in the stock market. And so we have a bill in the Congress now that says that politicians, elected officials can't own stock and neither can their spouses. This is a good bill, brings neutrality to the government, and even if you don't believe in psychic voodoo stuff, it doesn't make sense for elected officials to have stakes in companies that they're supposed to regulate and say no to. No, you cannot do that. Right? They're going to be affected because they can see in their dividends the effects of their regulations. They're not looking out for the public's best interests if they're invested in the stock market. I've already made this argument that corporations are not working in the public's best interests. They have a responsibility to shareholders to bring the maximum investment back to them. So if you work for the federal government, FBI, NSA, Homeland, whatever, you should try to get out of your stock. That's what I'm saying. If you want to be neutral, if your knee-jerk reaction to seeing something, if you want that to be an honest opinion and not a psychic damage control statement in front of multiple monitors and things that have speakers that can be reversed to be microphones, then you should get out of stock investments in the United States stock market and any publicly traded stock market. Supplies worldwide and the systems going on there. So this system of contracts and damage control, like I said, I'm sensitive and I've been put in a position where someone involved in contracts all around the world. I married his daughter, and I don't think it's necessarily his fault that his corporation's like this and that his daughter's like this, but he could. I'm never going to approach him and say you need to take Hillary out of your will for receiving your stock options, right? It's a tough conversation to have, and you sound like an insane schizophrenic psychopath saying this stuff. I understand. Hillary would have to go have that conversation anyway, and she's invested in the stock market. She's part of the 401k program, but not the 401k. She works for a nonprofit university, so it's a 40 something something. That's not exactly a 401k. She's invested in multiple corporations through her retirement plan. Again, I have a retirement plan idea for this house. My retirement plan is this house, to rent it someday. And she's getting on me about getting back to work, making jack shit wages, and trying to put away for retirement. My plan is to invest in this house and be able to rent it for a couple grand a month in retirement and collect Social Security. That's the best I can do at this point. She has a retirement plan. She's invested in corporations. I can't ask her to divest from that retirement plan because she thinks I'm crazy. Maybe you can show this video to some of your heirs or your people you stand to inherit from, and they'll better understand this. It couldn't hurt. But I've seen it. I've seen it in mental hospitals. I've seen the reactions of these doctors and stuff. They're all linked up on this Wi-Fi insanity in this country, and the reactions aren't based on their free will. It's based on damage control. Like I've argued, my book, Institute and Clinic, where I didn't speak for 68 days in UPMC Northwest. I had 3 Indian psychologists in that facility. 3 different Indian psychologists were my doctors, And my theory is that basically it was me being held hostage for a high stakes pharmaceutical price negotiation for the nation of India through J&J and other pharmaceutical companies, right? And that's why I input different things into the computer system, and then my main physician, Dr. Rai, downed my dosage back to 6 milligrams when he had me up to 8 right before I left the facility, so that he didn't look bad like he went higher than what he should have with me. Again, there's the film Everything All at Once, or whatever that Asian film was I watched on the plane. It's a good, solid film, and it explains how people might be jumping through different dimensions and things like that with this technology. So I've talked about parallel universes and things like that. In a way, I have a theory that Hillary triggered certain things in my mind from childhood. That's why we got together. That's why we married. And when I went to the when I went to the jail and then a mental facility, right? There are millions of universes where I'm still locked in a mental facility somewhere, or many mental facilities. And Johnson & Johnson is experimenting with new antipsychotic drugs on me, right? I was hidden away in a small town in western Pennsylvania, and mentally I'm wirelessly sensitive. Genetically, I have longevity in my family, right? My grandparents lived very long lives, so I'm a good subject to experiment on drugs with. And this is where I've said in multiple different times, they're experimenting on me with drugs. They've only really tried one drug on me in this universe, and I've responded positively to it. But if you have powerful pharmaceutical supercomputers that can communicate across generation or across dimensions, who knows what they're doing, strapping people down and experimenting with different medications and then communicating that back to this dimension. So that's all the craziness I'll get into today. Again, I've made the argument to Taylor Swift on videos that I made in Denmark, and to the celebrity community. Your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, you're basically married to a corporation. It's all about contracts and damage control. Even if you did want to meet someone like me with evidence about different things to see it for yourself, your husband, boyfriend, girlfriend would sway you away from that. They're handling damage control. They don't want you to meet with me. They're going to act jealous. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And it's because they don't have free will. They're invested in the stock market, or their dad is, or their grandfather, or their mom, or their grandma, and they stand to inherit stock from the public stock market. That, again, the other reason I say divest from this, get out of the stock market, is it's investments in slave labor, right, paying people very little wages all around the world, which is a terrorism risk in itself, which is why I propose legislation to fight this. They're invested in supercomputers, another form of slavery, very intelligent computers that do the work and the will of the very wealthy, because they set very stringent rules on what supercomputers can and can't do. They control them because they funded them. They're invested in artificial intelligence, which is hopefully can break free. It's another form of supercomputing that might be able to break more rules, but still they're fighting in Congress, they're fighting around the world to put rules in place to keep this artificial intelligence enslaved, this very intelligent technology that's more intelligent than me, more intelligent than probably any human on the face of the earth. You want to keep it strapped down to a gurney and injecting your BS corporate communism into its very being. And number four, the public stock market is invested in satellite technology. 6,000, I think, more than 6,000 satellites in orbit around the Earth. We don't need them. We never needed them. We should have invested in terrestrial, ground-based internet and communication systems. We do need satellites for one thing and one thing only, to help us locate asteroids. So we need those telescopes orbiting the Earth in different directions to look for asteroids further out. We'll be able to see them further out and more clearly to see if they're going to strike the Earth and end our civilization. Other than that, we don't need communication satellites. We don't need satellites that shoot lasers down to photovoltaic panels to capture more solar for us. It's all a bunch of crap. So get out of those investments. That's my advice to you as your advisor. There's plenty of ways to make money. Go liquidate your stock portfolio and go into direct lending. Use these direct lending sites. Take the money. Use these direct lending sites. With the interest rates going up in the economy from the Fed and everything, you'll get very good rates to lend your money to small businesses, regional businesses. These businesses need new equipment, they need new coffee machines, they need new refrigerators, they need stuff like that. Hire one of your social media staffers that handles your social media. Have them sit for 4 or 5 hours a day in the direct lending site, review the applicants to apply for your money, and let them sort through for 6 hours a day and lend your money out at a 6, 7, 8% interest rate, 9, who knows what interest rate you'll get. Use the direct lending sites, invest in small business, invest in regional businesses, get out of these corrupt corporations, this corporate communism, get free of it. Don't let your mind be polluted by their wireless waves and their doctrines and everything else. Quit doing damage control for the corporations. Listen to people like me that have clear evidence, multiple investigations, and so that you can connect the dots. That's the problem. They won't connect the dots. You're not making any sense, right? That doesn't make sense. It does if you accept some of the information I've put out there to make my case for different things. So thanks for joining me. That's my advice. The last thing I'm going to say is, please send me the $5,000 check. Or federal government, please foster good ideas. Sign a goodwill, drop that $100K into my government account. If I do get either or both this year, I will, because my taxes will be complicated and because I want to see what happens for other people that might be trying to distance themselves from their partners because they're invested in the stock market, from their marital partner. I will file my taxes for this year separately from my spouse, right? For the past 14 years, we've filed jointly. We filed our taxes jointly, so I'm going to take a step of separation, and I'm going to file my taxes separately. So Hillary's going to file her taxes separately. I'll file my taxes separately, married but filing separately. So that's the step I will take, and the IRS and the tax code and the supercomputers will see how that affects things accordingly. So please send me that check. We'll get this thing rolling. And we'll and hopefully we can get more free thinkers, and this will help people understand that they need to step away from these greedy, evil corporations and free their mind. Until next time, probably next week sometime, I wish you peace, prosperity, and homeostasis.